Hi everyone, welcome to another InfraView Spotlight series, InfraViewing. I am super excited today to have James Pearse with us, the CTO of Atech Cloud. As a quick snapshot, they are a leading multi-award winning Microsoft solutions partner, delivering complex multi-platform solutions, digital transformation, and a specialist within that managed service, cyber security, and Microsoft products. I clearly haven't given it a great intro. I'm sure James is now going to fill us in with all the gaps. But look, James, first of all, welcome. How you doing, buddy?
Yeah, no, good. Thank you for having me on, Tim. Really appreciate that.
No worries. Listen, I know you're a very busy man. I've been really excited to get you on the podcast for a while now. But look, should we just kick things off with? Do you want to give us myself and the audience a bit of an overview just of you, how you got into the industry, and just a bit of a snapshot on James Pearse?
Yeah, so I think first of all, I suppose career-wise, I've spent probably most of my career um, working in technology, security, and mostly transformation. So I started out kind of very hands-on as most people in this industry, systems administration, engineering, solution design, and then delivery.
Yeah.
And then over time, I've moved into more kind of leadership roles,
Okay.
where obviously the challenge has become less about individual technologies and deploying them and setting them up, and more about my focus really being on kind of building scalable platforms, as you kind of alluded to at Atech. And not only that, then the teams and then the services that we provide to customers. And at Atech, again, as you called out right at the beginning, as kind of CTO, my focus has been on modernizing how we deliver technology. So I've spent a lot of time at Atech shifting from moving it from a reactive IT provider to a proactive provider.
Okay.
Again, focusing on kind of like secure by design, platform-led services that kind of help our customers accelerate not only their security adoption, but also adopting of technology to kind of make their businesses run a lot smoother. And then second part of your question, I suppose, is how did I get into the industry?
Yeah. What dragged you in?
Curiosity. Yeah, curiosity, I suppose. I've always, I mean, really from a young age, my dad was an engineer, like a mechanical
Okay.
engineer. My granddad was a mechanical engineer. And I've
Wow.
always been interested in how things work. So breaking them, fixing them, rebuilding them. And technology was kind of like a natural fit for me. And I think what's kept me in the industry for, God, I'm trying to, 25 years now, really, has been like how the impact of technology can help people and
Love that.
businesses. And I've seen so many times firsthand how technology can really be an enabler, not only for organizations but individuals as well. And that's what keeps me interested in this space, definitely, and keeps me kind of motivated.
Yeah, I love the fact that you mentioned there that you kind of sort of progressed through the ranks, which is what I love
Yeah,
to see in a proper leader. Someone that's been there, got the scars, been an engineer,
yeah,
a consultant, an architect. Yeah, well, exactly. Sometimes you see people that have skipped it, and,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
and they
yeah,
just don't have that real sort of passion for technology. They could be an okay leader, but they just don't understand how tough and difficult it can be at times because they haven't sort of worn the t-shirt many times throughout that sort of project life cycle from engineering, consultancy, architecture, etc. So yeah, love the fact you've progressed through that. I mean, in terms of getting into the industry, wow, your dad, your grandfather, etc., sort of have always been around that sort of technology and that inquisitive mindset of building things, I suppose, right? Um, in terms of the MSP world, yeah, was that always where you wanted to be? Was that always a passion to get into that sort of fast-paced, dynamic environment?
no, no, not initially.
Okay.
When I got into technology, way back when I sort of finished my A levels, um, I kind of fell into the company that I worked for at the time. I was meant to go traveling with a friend of mine, and that kind of got cancelled. So I ended up
Okay.
falling into a job, um, obviously focusing on technology and very much kind of early systems administration.
Yeah.
It was for a big logistics company, and I kind of worked my way up through there from, going and changing tapes and doing kind of maintenance on IT systems to them supporting them basically. Um, and I didn't really, I did that sort of for 10 years, did project engineering and other bits and pieces.
Yeah.
And I kind of went into the MSP space, or systems integration, value-added reseller space back in 2011.
Okay.
And that was really because of what happened with the kind of credit crunch, because the
Yep.
company that I worked for at the time, as most organizations did at that point, just stopped investing because it was keeping the lights on, making sure that everything was running as it should do. And because of that lack of investment, I just kind of sat back and was like, well, what's going to happen to me? What I need to do something about this. And we had a contractor that was working for our company at the time, really, really good guy actually. And again, I think this has always been something in my career as well. I've been quite lucky to speak to the right people at the right time that have kind of given me really good advice.
Love that.
And this contractor at that time just said to me, look, James, if I was you, I'd just get out and go and work for a partner, go and work in that kind of ecosystem.
Yes.
Because you're going to get exposed to lots more different organizations and the way that they work, which is all going to be slightly different. But actually, advice to you is that is probably where you're going to sort of progress onwards. So I took that advice to hand, and then I ended up moving into a value-added reseller, which again was probably one of the best career decisions I made at that point, because then that's what pushed me into the systems integration, MSP space from then on really.
Yeah, and look, I love that because, as you know, all we do is sort of recruit in the MSP world, and actually, I always ask the question when taking a job from a hiring manager is like, do you want someone coming from an MSP? And they always say yes. However, we never rule out the superstar in the making that potentially does work for an end user that can transition. It's not for everyone, right? And we always say it's not for the faint-hearted. I always use the sort of line that sort of 12 months at an end user, can be 12 months at an MSP can be like 2-3 years at an end user, just based on pace, urgency. If excuse my language, shit hits the fan and something needs to be done, it's got to be done yesterday, not tomorrow. Where sometimes in the different environment it can be a bit more, do you know what, we'll look at that later. Okay, cool. So look, we'll come back onto you in terms of highlights, achievements a bit later on, but look, let's bring this back. Let's bring this towards Atech Cloud. For the wider audience, tell us what's the core focus right now. There's been lots of change, technology, focus, clients, etc. But right now, in terms of the core focus from a business perspective, where are you guys at? Where are you positioning yourself?
Yeah, so our core focus at this kind of juncture point at the moment is really helping customers to adopt cloud, which is ultimately what we're doing. Security, and I'll drop the word in straight away, AI as well, which is obviously a very new.
How long have we've had 10 minutes? It's been mentioned.
But honestly, there was a lot of hype about it. But I mean, every day I look at stuff and I'm blown away with what you can do and the ability and the way that it's going to change ultimately everything that we do as not just as an organization, but as a human race.
Absolutely.
I think it's going to really upend everything. But from an Atech perspective, we're helping customers kind of adopt AI. But also as an MSP, we're kind of helping customers move away from just us offering that kind of traditional IT support and being more of a strategic technology partner. And again, with a focus on security. So, I've had a security background for many, many years. And when I came into Atech initially, it's enough to do cloud and cloud modernization, but you've always got to look at everything with a security lens. So we always adapt that security lens to everything we do, not just security services, but the way we deploy cloud, the way we deploy AI services, etc., is always with this security first mindset. And again, we do that using Microsoft technologies. You alluded to our partnership status with Microsoft and what we've built over the last 3 years. But again, Microsoft's in a really great space because of a lot of the way their technologies kind of all work together. And we're helping customers. They've committed spend, whether it's E5 licensing, whether it's investment into Azure, about how can they bring all of that together, unlock all of the money that they've invested, and then basically use those technologies to create kind of long-term value for them as an organization. And that's ultimately what we do, Tim.
Love that. So look, if we're looking at cloud adoption, security, and we've mentioned it, AI. AI has been bounced around the market for the last 18 months, right? Very loosely at the beginning, and I'm now personally seeing a lot of companies sort of separate themselves from the crowd. I think what they've done is really looked at how AI can complement our current solutions and services and how we can
Yeah.
better our customers' overall offering. And it's really refreshing to see companies like Atech now absolutely sort of leading and dominating in that space. I think it scared the life out of me personally when it first came out. You know,
Yeah.
as you've already experienced, I'm not a techie. I had problems connecting onto this meeting at the beginning. So, you know, when it came about, I was just like, do you know what? I'm a bit old school. You know, pick up the phone, have a chat, go and meet someone,
Yeah.
grab a coffee or a beer, right? And then suddenly this new tool comes into play, and I hear the words, it's going to remove all the grunt work. And I was like, well, I've always done loads of grunt work to get me to the fun bit, right? And
Yeah.
you know, I think it's here to stay, isn't it? You know, and it's not going anywhere. You know, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's going to change how humans operate, how we work, how we think. I think what's really refreshing is, you know, companies like yourself now are doing it in the right way. You know, they're actually going on that mini journey with customers and taking them through that AI solution, opposed to saying, you just need this, it's going to do that. Well, actually, we're currently doing this for you. Actually, if we add this additional whatever AI tooling or solution, etc., it could actually better their organization now and for the future, which is great. I thought AI was going to be just this sort of one-stop shop, but it looks like now a lot of companies are wrapping AI around all of their existing foundations, whether it be AI cloud, AI networking, AI cyber. Is that true, or do you see it as something completely different?
No, I think you've hit the nail on the head. I think if you look back to last year, start of last year, end of the year before, obviously with GPT being released
Yeah,
into the ether, I mean that's what really then got everybody's kind of, I suppose, hearts racing and Jesus Christ, what is this?
yeah,
But it was very much a chat interface. So yes, some really great use cases, but it ultimately was, I put a, you know, I ask something, I get something back. I think what's really started to happen over the last 6 months at scale
mm,
is the kind of agentic AI and the rise of the agents. It's the agents that is the game changer,
yeah,
because the agents then can start running like us. So, you know, I tell an agent what I want it to do, and it will just consistently do that day in, day
love that.
out.
Yeah,
So not only are we helping organizations by understanding what they're currently doing, where they currently are, and how these kind of technologies can help them,
mm,
even us as an organization, as an ATech, we're using this ourselves because, you know,
perfect.
as an MSP, you know, we need to make sure that we're providing consistent, you know, services to customers. We've got, you know, I said that consistency is there. We're doing things in the right manner. Um, so we're starting to leverage AI ourselves, both in the way that we, um, you know, architect technologies, deploy technologies, manage that at scale. We're using AI ourselves to kind of take that next step.
Brilliant. And that's what I absolutely love. And that's when I mentioned over the last 18 months at the beginning, people were just, yeah, using it very loosely. I mean, my phone didn't stop going. People were calling me up saying, can you get me an AI architect? I'm like, to do
Yeah,
what?
yeah,
They're
yeah,
like, I don't know. I've just heard so-and-so is getting one, so I better get one. And then we kind of saw that plateau a little bit. And then, like you said, the last 6 months, where I've personally seen companies have the most amount of success, they've introduced it and implemented it internally in their own business to allow
yeah.
their organization to operate quicker, slicker, like you say, build the agents,
Agree.
allow their staff to just be more proactive. And then it's almost like a mini case study. So when you go to a customer, this is what we've done. This is how
Exactly
we
that.
operate. This is what we can do for you, but on a much bigger scale. Um,
Yeah,
and that's the difference. And yeah, for those that are attending and the wider audience, you know, Atech Cloud, you know, I hear nothing but great things in terms of always at the forefront of the latest cutting edge technology, always being innovative, looking at what they can do to improve. And we've just said it, their internal process that then by default just adds that slicker, better, quicker service to their customers. And I love it because, yeah, I think some organizations, and I'm not pigeonholing people, but some of the sort of multi-billion pound organizations, they're just not doing it internally. So therefore, they're kind of rocking up with new customers. And AI is a conversation for the sake of it being a conversation, opposed
yeah.
to this is how it's going to really work because this
Agree.
is what we're doing internally at the moment with our agents, etc. So yeah, no, I
Agree.
love that. Which kind of leads on to the customer side of things, really. So you know, in terms of I suppose what that perfect client looks like for Atech, you know, what's your target market? What does the perfect client look like?
Yeah, so we typically kind of operate with what we term as like mid-sized organizations. You
Okay.
know, Microsoft has this term of kind of SMC, so small, medium, and corporate.
Yep.
Um, so the reason why we do that is they're kind of large enough to have complexity, but they're
Right.
small enough to move quickly.
Love that.
So we're not operating at the super high-end enterprise public sector where it's very slow, meeting after meeting after meeting to make a decision. We're working with organizations that are quite agile. But for us as well, the most important part is that they're often, well, mostly security conscious in organizations as well.
Okay.
So
Yep.
they're ones that security is paramount. They're fast growing businesses as well, so they know that technology is critical to them. But obviously they can't build it all themselves, or they can't deploy or scale as they need to. And then also, I think for us, the most important part is that or our best relationships, I suppose, are with customers that see us as a strategic partner, so not
Perfect.
just as a supplier. So we're not, British Gas or something. We are going in there and we're working with them side by side to build out solutions and services that make them scale as an organisation.
Love that. Look, and I think that's important, right? Communication, relationship, partnership.
Yeah,
We can use all these cheesy buzzwords, but the fact of the matter is, there is no communication. It's not a joint effort to come up with the best possible solution. It's not going to work. You don't want to be that company that says it's this or nothing, but equally, you don't want a client that isn't going to listen, right? Because
exactly.
effectively, to be that strategic partner, they have to be open to looking at potentially new things. Potentially moving from one infrastructure to another, and yeah, like you say, being that security conscious type business, because it wraps around everything right now. We hear the horror stories where unfortunately some companies haven't had the right certain things in place, and it's cost a lot of companies money, or the end clients, etc. So okay, numbers of clients in terms of you say sort of small to, not so large that you can get lost or not have that sort of strategic partnership relationship, not too small that there's not enough volume, it doesn't make commercial sense. Is there a user base that's the sweet spot? I'm just thinking for the wider audience.
Yeah, I mean, a good question. I mean, we tend to operate. I mean, our ICP is really customers that are between sort of 300 to 2,000.
Okay.
But that doesn't say that we don't offer services for customers that are slightly smaller, because as we well know, we're in a technology-led kind of industrial revolution, and there's some of our customers that are actually smaller than that from a headcount perspective, but actually have got large IT complex environments
Fine.
that will still help as well. So again, it's a conversation, I think, but I think if we're going out looking for new organisations to work with, it's definitely between sort of 300 and 2,000.
Perfect. Cool. So again, any clients out there that are interested across cloud adoption, security, AI from an MSP point of view, whether it be 300 to 2,000, but actually, it could be slightly smaller, that are looking to seriously make, technology change and go on that digital transformation, then it's definitely worth having a chat to Atech Cloud. Okay, cool. And then in terms of, I suppose, some of the issues or struggles, actually, let's simplify it. What about the challenges? What's the biggest challenge or challenges that you or Atech have had to overcome over the last sort of 18 months, 2 years?
Uh, yeah, really good question. I think, like most businesses, like MSPs that are in our space, and obviously there are a lot of MSPs in our space.
Yeah.
I think scale, I think, is one thing, but complexity and change. We're talking
Yeah.
about AI, we're talking about other, consolidation of different organizations, and the market slightly being overcrowded in some respects. But I think at Atech, one of our biggest challenges has been modernizing that kind of operating model, as I was talking to you about earlier on,
Yeah.
while continuing to deliver great service. So you're kind of wearing two hats at the same time. And we've done that by kind of resetting how our teams work together. So we've looked at like standardizing platforms and investing heavily in kind of good people. We've worked with you on some of those as well, tooling and automation. But you've got to do all of that at the same time as you're trying to grow at the same time. So
Not
that's
easy.
definitely been one of our big challenges. I think the other one as well has been around just M&A as well. So,
Okay.
when I joined Atech, in very short succession, we acquired 3 companies. So folding those companies into Atech, which was phenomenal. We got great people across, great customers, and yeah, a great process. And then at the end of October 24, we were acquired by the Iomart group.
Yeah.
So of course, M&A, mergers and acquisitions, there's always, challenges, but we're coming out of the back of all of those challenges now, and we're a stronger company for all that as well.
Love that. And look, it's one of those ones, isn't it? I think mergers sound great at the time, but then suddenly, yeah, they're always a lot harder than I think we originally anticipate. And it just gets messy, doesn't it? Because as much as we all like to think that if this company's buying this or we're merging into a smaller, bigger company, whatever it may be, there's always going to be some unhappy campers. There's always going to be people that don't embrace change. But like you said, you're going to always inherit that, additional level of class.
Exactly.
Hopefully. So okay, so we've come out, we've looked at the challenges, we've overcome them, we've looked at what technology go to market we have. So what is the plan, in terms of, I hate saying for the next 5 years, I mean, next 12, 18 months, 2 years, whatever, what's the plan right now?
Yeah, so for us, again, that's a really good question. It kind of just building on, I suppose, what I've already said. I mean, we're doubling down massively on kind of platform-led services.
Yep.
The AI, and again, AI for customers, but also for us. So AI-driven operations is absolutely critical at the moment.
Definitely.
Because we want to take a lot of the kind of repetitive, low-hanging fruit away from some of our people, so that we can get automation to run a lot of that. But also, it gives our guys back more time to spend directly with customers, because that's ultimately what we want to be doing.
Perfect.
Flip customers with great people, having great conversations, everyone's happy. But always doing that, again, like I said, with that security lens.
Okay.
So, we're embedding, Copilot style tooling. We've got automation. I think there's a lot of sometimes inconsistency. I think people get, and I think you alluded to this right at the beginning as well, when you talked about like that kind of, you as a recruiter, go out and find the AI people. I think there was a lot of confusion around AI initially. I think it was like, oh, AI is just going to solve everything.
Absolutely.
And actually, when we talk to a lot of our customers and even ourselves, is actually automation is probably one area that is, there is a part of AI there, depending on what you're trying to do with automation, but automation is its own thing. And actually trying to automate a lot of those kind of lower level tasks that are just repetitive and need to happen all the time is critical for us. So we're doing a lot of that, because that helps improve that consistency. It reduces burnout, so we're not just got people doing the same thing day in, day out, which is just ridiculous.
Yep.
And obviously, ultimately, because if you've got that consistency, you're delivering better outcomes for customers, which is the most important thing.
Love that.
But also, I think, and this is a big emphasis for me, and again, I've worked with you on some of the hires that we brought in recently as well, is we're focused on bringing in really good talent, but evolving that talent also internally within Atech, growing our kind of leadership teams, getting people to kind of own stuff.
Really important.
And just scaling that in a responsible way as well is really important for me as well. I think people are the most important asset that we have as an organization, and I think it is absolutely critical that we invest in those people, give people the opportunity to kind of progress. As I did myself, I was given those opportunities throughout my career. I've been in the right place sometimes at the right time, but I've also stepped out my comfort zone, put my hand up, being willing to go and do what I needed to do, and it's done me really well. So I want to make sure that other people have those opportunities as well.
Do you know what? It's really refreshing to hear as well, because what stood out there is you're a people first business, right? And it is about the people, and it's about the people you not only hire, but what you are and what you're able to do for them over the next 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years, right? Because we see a lot of businesses hiring top talent, all the certs, all the skills, they come from a competitor, and then they're just left on their own. There's no development, there's no support, there's no anything, and that's where unfortunately we see that churn. Where in today's world, it sounds really obvious, but it's less about the money. Yes, people don't want to leave for less money, but it's more about the business, the strategy, the vision, where are they going as a company? And more importantly, what do they need me to do, not just now, but in the future? And, what I'm being brought in to actually implement, architect or manage, how is that going to benefit the business over the next 5 to 10 years? This is what people now are looking at, and that's what they're considering when they move. Of course, money's important, but actually, it's probably number 3. It's the bigger picture. Where is that company going? Does it fit into my key objectives, my career goals, my opportunities? So yeah, it's great to hear. And you mentioned the AI again. In terms of yeah, trying to remove some of those repetitive tasks. I'm a big believer of, and I think you highlighted it, is, I'm all up for AI automation, as many tools as we can possibly get, as long as it's not instead of human touch.
Completely
If
right.
it's to get us
Completely right.
quicker to that and more, I think you said more client interaction, more engagement, more opportunity to create that better service by actually meeting customers, I think it's going to be amazing, right? And I think
Yeah.
we're only at the start, aren't we? I think
Yeah.
we're going to have all of our minds blown. I think on every single quarter there's going to be something slightly better, something slightly bigger. Not necessarily a new tool. I just think they're going to be able to do more, and we're going to be able to work with it better. So
I agree. I think also for us as well, I was having a conversation internally a couple of weeks ago. I think what I'm also starting to see, and I think Microsoft have also done a really good job identifying this. I was at because obviously we're of our Microsoft partnership status and what we do from a security perspective,
yeah,
we get the opportunity to go out. They do they call it like an airlift every January, where they bring in all their sort of top partners, and they go through their kind of product roadmap. They go through what they're working on, what they're seeing, what's top of mind for them, but also really helping partners go, well, this is actually some areas of opportunity for you to go out and talk to customers about.
okay,
And what was interesting was last year it was all about looking at AI, just using AI and getting AI out there, putting Copilot on every machine, pushing. This year, what was interesting was it was still the same kind of message, but it was also around the actual, because people are doing it at scale now, there's now the security concerns about all of that as well. So people are just like vibe coding internal applications, building stuff, and they're not thinking about identity. They're not thinking about the security layer around the side of that. So actually for us, it's creating another opportunity in helping organizations do that in a secure way as well. So again, that
brilliant.
kind of touches on our security kind of certifications and credibility. So yeah, it's great, but it's also quite scary in some respects, because actually it's unbelievable what you can do, and if you don't do it in the right way, you could actually do your own business quite a lot of damage.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's where you guys are doing it in the right way, but also with that security wraparound, because it's all very well plugging something into an AI tool and it coming back with loads of information, but then if someone that isn't educated enough is the right word to know what to do with that information, that could cause loads of problems, right? And this is probably what scared me the most internally, when we invested in an AI tool, if you like, and it was great, and it was like, write us this advert, write us this, put this email. But suddenly, if someone hasn't got the right experience to know what to do with that information that's been given to them, that could cause problems. And I can only imagine if someone within your business is then using that information to then follow these next steps and instructions. They're not perfect. They're okay, but they're not correct. It could cost people money, right? So again, you've got to wrap that. And then I'm sure there's going to be these horror stories where people are being left exposed, and that security bit. So if that isn't then, like you said, if it's not led with that and wrapped around anything that you do, because you need to make sure everyone's safeguarded from, I'm sure, private information or access to certain information, etc., and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Let's bring it a little bit back to yourself, just in terms of, it's a cheesy question, but I'm going to ask it. The biggest sort of career success story, or something you're most proud of to date?
I would say when I worked at Microsoft, so I spent sort of just under 4 years working over there. I had an opportunity, so I started at Microsoft in the sort of public sector team. So I worked a lot with, government, and did some work for the Ministry of Defence and a few other bits and pieces. But I got a really good opportunity to work with basically it was a startup within Microsoft at that point. So they just created this business unit called Tech for Social Impact, which has now been rebranded as Elevate. And that was the whole reason why they did that was they didn't have any mechanism in Microsoft to support kind of NGOs and non-profits. Those organizations were all being served by either they fell under like public sector or education, and there weren't kind of offers for them on licensing. It was just a bit of a mess, and there was no kind of real support from Microsoft. So Brad Smith had this idea to set up this kind of unit, and I was lucky enough to come into that very, very early on. And I got the opportunity to work with the kind of United Nations globally, which was again absolutely phenomenal. And I think those early days in TSI, especially that sort of first 9 to 10 months, were probably the most amazing of my career.
Love that.
I've done it. The flip side was I was doing a lot of traveling. I had a young daughter, which was obviously sometimes a bit of a pain to be away from home. But I got the opportunity to go and sort of travel around the world. I went to a refugee camp where I saw, some of the technology that we did a pilot for a refugee platform, which basically means that refugees that were displaced, mainly Syrian refugees, that were going into a refugee camp in Jordan. Obviously moving in there with no documentation at all. We didn't have a passport. I didn't have any identification. And one of the things that they did, which was I never realised that at the time, was they give every refugee like an allowance, or they give a family an allowance, and they can use that to go into kind of basically like shops that are in these refugee camps to basically get their own supplies. So it's kind of like they're not just giving them grain or anything like that at all. They've got the ability to go in and buy oil and buy whatever they need to get. But in order to pay for that, they had to use biometrics. So they were all on this kind of main sort of database, and the biometric was a retina scan. And the system that they had in place before was all kind of clunky. It was all on when I say on premise, it was at the refugee camp, but it was it didn't scale very well. It was a bit a bit rubbish, and it would take ages for them to kind of process these retina scans. I think sometimes it could take up to 60 seconds, which doesn't sound like a great deal, but when you're processing thousands of refugees at a time, that adds up. So I worked with UNHCR at the time to put forward this pilot to get it into the cloud. And again, the UN at that time were still quite wary of the cloud, and obviously because of things like the US and all of that sort of stuff. But we managed to get them to do it, and we dropped that down to 3 seconds for every refugee being processed.
No way.
So yeah, the impact that had was phenomenal. And then they said to me, come out to the refugee camp and see it sort of firsthand. So I got the opportunity to go to Jordan and go and see that.
That's amazing.
That was amazing. Yeah, honestly, and to go back to my earlier point of, actually seeing technology impact and see that actual happen was phenomenal. Because for me, you're looking at something, we've got it down from 60 to 3 seconds. Oh, that's great. But then you go and see it firsthand. You can see them, how they're able to process so many people, gives them more time back. It was really impactful to kind of see that and see the impact.
I mean, that's job satisfaction at its best, right? Yeah, and 100%. That is amazing. Wow. Would you ever do something like that again in terms of the traveling role, or?
I probably. I mean, I'm a bit older now, and my daughter's luckily turning into a teenager, so she doesn't really want to spend any time with me anymore. So.
Not cool enough.
Yeah, exactly. Unless
I know that feeling, mate.
Yeah, exactly. Unless you want something. So.
Oh, you're definitely cool enough to do the lifts every weekend, I'm sure.
Oh, 100%. Oh, yeah,
absolutely. Or I need a bit of extra cash because I'm going out for a Nando's or something.
Exactly. But yeah, I mean, I would never say never. I mean, it was phenomenal, and I even think what we've done at Atech as well. I mean, I know it's completely sort of slightly different, but Ryan Langley, who's the CEO of Atech, took a sort of a punt on me, spoke to me, gave me the opportunity to come in, and I think again that just is a shout out to him and his understanding of good people as well. We built a very strong leadership team. We were backed by a PE company. We wanted to grow the business. We had the right people to help do that. And looking back before that kind of sale to Iomart, if I look back at what we achieved in just under 2 years, was phenomenal. A lot of hard work and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. But when you get those results at the end, and you look back and go, yeah, that was brilliant. I loved it, and I love that ride. I love that. Taking something or doing something and then seeing ultimately what that end goal is at the end is for me really, it's got job satisfaction.
I mean, you mentioned that at the end. I mean, first of all, with the refugee side of things, wow. I mean, that job satisfaction, making proper, sort of worldwide change, right? And changing those, lives of people, right? And then, Atech, what you've achieved. I mean, have you got any idea of numbers? I mean, obviously being brought on board by Ryan and then taking the business from X to Y. What did that period look like in terms of X million to X million?
I mean, we we grew the company. I think, revenue wise, I think when we were acquired, we were doing just over sort of 5 million in revenue.
Yeah.
And when I started, it was just under two.
Okay. Wow.
But I think the most important thing for me was not only just what we did from a sales perspective and bringing on new customer opportunity, but also actually what we did from the kind of maturity of a technology stack. And you said right at the beginning, where we've got to from a Microsoft perspective. That was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears
Yeah.
by myself, by Ryan, by David Craft, who's our alliances director as well, who's an awesome guy. Elaine Riley, who's our marketing director, again, phenomenal. All of us worked together very, very hard to bring it all together, to build out the story, to have the right technology things in place behind, to get the right people in. Again, you and your guys have been instrumental in some of that as well. It's just good to see that all come to fruition, and good to see that come to a tangible outcome. So yeah, I love stuff like that. I really do. It's really
and this is why we do what we do, right? If we weren't passionate and excited and enthusiastic and all that kind of stuff, and again, I know they're cheesy buzzwords, but look, I think the market's driven by personality, character, people with the right attitude, drive. Otherwise, it becomes repetitive, boring, and let's face it, we've got AI to do that now. So we still need
AI do all the Monday stuff.
Well, exactly, but we still need the drivers. We still need, whether you've been in, 2 years or 30 years, if you're not passionate and bought into the idea. I think that's what, we alluded to earlier. If you're building that, anyone you're hiring, they've got to be bought into the business, the strategy, the vision. They've got to want to go the extra mile. I'm that strong believer of, I like working with people that have that attitude of no job too small, no job too big, roll your sleeves up, get stuff done, because there will be bumps in the road at any level that you're coming in at. But, I think joining a business where people matter, service is key, and putting our customers first is really important. If you haven't got that mindset, that attitude to go the extra mile and give it your all, then you're either going to get pushed out very quick, or you're just not going to be part of the culture, the bigger picture, and go on what you said, that really exciting journey. And that's when you kind of step back and go, wow, I've achieved this in this period of time. What does the next 5-10 years look like, right? And then and that just for the right person gives them that exciting. Okay, cool. I'm going to move on to, I've got a couple of things before we move on to a bit of a quick fire questions just to sort of finish off, because this has been brilliant. I mean, literally just fascinating information. I've got a really good overview. What advice would you give others, if they were getting into either technology or the MSP world, or both? What would be the one bit of advice that you would give?
I think for me, and this has always served me really, really well.
Okay.
I'd always say, anybody, don't chase like a title or trends.
Okay.
It sounds a bit cheesy, but chase the kind of understanding. And what I mean by that is learn how systems work, how businesses operate, and how people actually use technology. Because the most successful people that I've come across understand all of those concepts, and they can translate that kind of complexity, I suppose, into what good needs to look like. So I do see sometimes, and I've worked with people in the past that are all about, well, it's the title, it's this, it's that, or I'm just going to go down a random path, and actually they're not looking at the bigger picture. And I think for me, if you've got a good understanding, a good grounding, you're not just doing the 9 to 5, you're looking at constantly stuff outside of work. I think it just makes you a better rounded a better rounded individual. I think that's just going to have far more success than one that doesn't, I suppose.
I love that. I think you mentioned a couple of times throughout this podcast about being curious. I think it's important, right? Be curious, and whether you're, I don't know, first time stepping into the IT world, or, you're looking to make that move, be curious, remain teachable, there's so much access, isn't there, right now in the world, to free information, to free training courses, accreditation. I think the people that, what I say, outside of work are going above and beyond to just make themselves better and just get more knowledge that's going to benefit them, the company they work for, their customers. It kind of just has that positive knock-on effect that, people are just always improving. And it's those types of people that I think do really, really well, that, like you said, curious, want to learn, are thinking about the bigger picture. I just don't like titles, if I'm honest. Coming from a recruitment perspective, I think an architect in one business is completely different to an architect in another, a head of, a manager. I mean, God, the word consultant, right, I can go find a consultant for 40 grand, or I can find a consultant for 240 grand. It is so different. And you've just hit the nail on the head. Whoever is looking to either get in or move, make sure you've done your homework. Make sure you understand the role, the bigger picture, the people you're joining. This is my advice as well when I give to anyone. I don't oversell. I don't push anyone into an opportunity that doesn't feel right. If anything, I kind of take the step back, let them go and do their own research once we've given them a bit of an overview, right? Because like you've said, James, they've got to know exactly what they're walking into, and they've got to be bought in, because it will be tough. It will be challenging. It will be difficult. It's not going to be that straightforward. When you join the right business like Atech, you'll get the support, you get the opportunity to progress, develop, and you can stay at the forefront of the latest cutting technologies, but you still got to bring it. It's got to be a two-way thing, right? Otherwise, it won't work. Okay. One thing I didn't ask earlier, which I'm now going to, and some people hate or love this question, Atech Cloud's USPs.
Okay, yeah. So our USPs, three things, I suppose.
Okay.
I've talked about it quite a lot. So security is one of our first USPs. So that's kind of security first thinking. So everything we do has a security lens on it.
Love that.
We're moving more towards this kind of platform first delivery. So again, AI is going to help us with some of this, but also the right people in the organization, the right thought processes, etc., but making repeatable, scalable solutions that help our customers, rather than just doing everything for everybody bespoke, one of a kind. It's just that's a nightmare to manage, a nightmare to facilitate. And I think the last one for me is kind of, again, a bit cheesy, a bit corny, but people and partnership, I think.
Love that.
That our deep sort of Microsoft expertise, which we built up over the last 3 years, the credibility we have with Microsoft, but also our customers and our own people. That is really, really critical for us.
Brilliant. I love that. And look, and all three equally as important as each other, and they all kind of sort of work. Work in conjunction.
They complement each other as well.
Absolutely. I mean, we mentioned, I don't think we've actually labeled how many Microsoft sort of accreditations or certifications you guys you hold at the moment. How many is that?
So we've got all the major partner designations.
Okay.
So we're up to, I believe now it's 8, because we've got 2 that you only get invited to, which are, I mean, it's not normal non-standard Microsoft, but it's more around hybrid cloud. So obviously the piece that you can do because of what we're doing with Iomart now. But also we've got all of our advanced specializations pretty much across all of our partner designations as well. And again, that's a testament to the people that we have, and the way that we infuse that kind of training and development. I mean, one great thing that I found when I started Atech was, I mean, again, it sounds really basic, but it's just a really good way to promote that kind of constant learning, is that Ryan had everybody gets 12 days of training every year.
Okay.
So a little bit like holidays. You can take them and use them to kind of advance your own, understanding, do exams, whatever it may be. But we're giving people that time to do that as well, as opposed to just expecting them to do it alongside everything else they're doing. So
love that.
That's really helped. And I think, all of those things together has just, again, helped us get to where we kind of are today, I suppose.
Brilliant. And again, in summary, you're investing in people, right? And that's just absolutely key. Again, that's an additional bonus. 12 days training. We're not telling you have to do it. We're offering you the opportunity to have those 12 days out to invest in yourself that will better you, the business, the company, the clients. And again, just I love that. I love that. Some amazing insights there, mate. I've absolutely loved hearing more about you guys and you personally, what you've achieved, what you've done. So I'm going to finish off with a little bit of fun, quick fire. Try and do it in 1 or 2 words. So, if, right, I'm going to shoot this out now. So, what should I start with? Right, 2 or 3 people you would like to invite.
So for me, it will probably be,
Can you hear me?
I can now, yeah.
I read it that bit. Someone was teamsing me throughout the, I have put do not disturb on it, but yeah, cool. Right, fine. So we're going to finish off on the last bit, the fun, quick fire bit. Right, I'm going to shoot 3 people you would most like to invite to dinner. Dead or alive?
Yeah, a bit eclectic, but I've got an unbelievable admiration for Steve Jobs. So I would
course.
love to have had the opportunity to sit down with him. Warren Buffett as well is another man I completely admire, and Winston Churchill as well is somebody that I would have
Oh
loved to
my
have had
word. God, I
dinner
mean,
and
that would be
whiskey
a
from
fun
the
dinner.
world with. Yeah, that would
Three
be
very
that'd be the
different
best dinner ever.
people.
Yeah.
I know the answer to this, unless you're going to throw a spanner in the works. Microsoft or Apple?
I'm going to throw a spanner in the works. I actually am an Apple fanboy. So Microsoft as a technology provider, but personally, love Apple. Apple
Love
kit.
that. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people do. Football or rugby?
Rugby,
Yeah, good man. Team, oh God, me too. Team, who do you support?
Gloucester.
Okay, cool. Fine. I'm Quins, but I live in Twickenham, so there we go.
Fine.
Degree or apprenticeship in one sentence?
Apprenticeship.
Love that. One thing, a passion or a hobby that most people don't know about you or you do?
Uh, well, I like to cycle, but I love cooking as well. So most people probably don't know that, but
Oh
cooking.
God, that's another question. Favorite dish then?
I like making curries. That's my
Good man.
yeah,
Right, favorite
very
bit of
nice.
tech over the last 20 years that, yeah, you wouldn't,
iPhone,
if you could either get back or never lose.
iPhone,
Yeah,
iPhone.
perfect. Best thing about the channel?
People.
Perfect. Love that.
Yeah.
Hardest thing about working in the channel or the MSP world?
Um, Demand. I think
Demand.
sometimes just yeah, juggling lots of things at the same time.
Agreed.
Pressure.
Agreed. Cool. A motto you live by?
Work hard, play hard.
Oh, go on. Love it. Right. Last one. So one thing that you, if you had known back then when you started your career now would be better.
God, if I knew what I knew now, investing in stock a lot earlier than what I did now, I would be a
God,
very rich man.
I'm not,
If I knew what I knew
that's
now.
another conversation for a beer or a bit of lunch. Honestly, yeah, but yes, I totally agree. Yeah, you know when your mate says to do it and you don't, and then 20 years down the line, yeah,
Yeah,
they've just got a loads of zeros, and you're like, shit, I should have done that. Cool.
yeah.
Oh, James, mate, this has been absolutely brilliant, and yeah, it's been some fantastic insights there. I suppose for the good of the audience, just want to thank you for all of your time, all your effort, some great insights. For those that have tuned in, if you would like to comment or reach out to James or myself, please feel free to see all the details below, and obviously subscribe to InfraViewing. And if you'd like to potentially go under the spotlight, come and reach out to me. But once again, James, absolutely amazing, mate. Thank you so much. Brilliant. Atech Cloud, James Pearse, everyone.
Thanks so much. Cheers, mate.